NFL Justice Mosqueda at Just As Football featured columnist May 23, 2018. Marcio Jose Sanchez, Associated Press. Superstars get most of the love, but NFL teams are stitched together by above-average players who may never get their due. This article is an active salute to every franchise's unheralded anchor. For some teams, that may be a young player who's slowly working up the depth chart. For others, it could be a veteran role player. Either way, these athletes help their teams on Sundays and influence off-season decisions, even if they aren't Aaron Rodgers or Odell Beckham Jr. They're the offensive linemen or defensive tackles who aren't mentioned much by color commentators, the skill players who aren't picked up in fantasy football leagues, and the late-round picks who bloom into starters. Elaine Thompson, Associated Press. In his first twos in the NFL, undrafted free agent Olsen Pierre was unable to get on the field. Last Pierre finished with 11.5 tackles at or behind the line. That number ranked behind only Chandler Jones 29 and Corey Peters 12 for Arizona in 2017. Under defensive coordinator James Bettcher, the Cardinals had not had a Time 3 technique role for any defensive tackle for several years. This is one reason why Pierre played just 33% of Arizona's defensive snaps, despite his production. New Cardinals head coach Steve Wilks, formerly the Carolina Panthers defensive coordinator, will bring a 4-3 defense on a time-penetrating defensive line role to the desert. That can only mean good things for Pierre, who is one of the brightest young players at the position. Kelvin Kuo, Associated Press. Dan Quinn's last as a college defensive coordinator was 2012 with the Florida Gators. That happened to be cornerback Brian Poole's true freshman at Florida. When Poole went undrafted in 2016, his former defensive coordinator picked him up as a potential slot cornerback. Since that signing, the 59 defensive back has played 1,465 defensive snaps for the Atlanta Falcons. Poole's story is a perfect example of scouting and projection into highly specific roles. Quinn essentially found a time starter in college free agency. Only 6 Falcons, Robert Alford, Ricardo Allen, Keanu Neal, Deion Jones, Devonta Campbell and Desmond Trufant, have played more defensive snaps over the last 2 years than Poole. Marcio Jose Sanchez, Associated Press. Baltimore's defensive line is so deep that who is on the field varies a lot for specific packages, a rarity in today's NFL with 3-down nickel-heavy linemen. When you think of the Ravens' nickel front, Brandon Williams, one of the league's best nose tackles, and Michael Pierce, the rare splash undrafted free agent signing, likely come to mind. In reality, Willie Henry, who plays a 3-technique role for Baltimore, played more snaps for the Ravens than any other defensive lineman in 2017. Henry found himself on the field for 55% of Baltimore's defensive snaps even though he only started 3 games last year. Henry's penetration-specific role, compared to Williams and Pierce who are mostly run-stuffers, is valuable enough to fit into a lot of sub-packages. Considering Baltimore's depth at other defensive line roles, he may be missed more than any of the team's other defensive linemen if he were to miss games for injury. Lynn Sladke, Associated Press. It's difficult to find a hidden gem in Buffalo. Their top players are either paid to be top players or were high draft picks. Their ISNT, a day 3 pick who emerged as a homegrown rookie contract stud on this Bills roster. A player who is underappreciated, though, is safety Jordan Poyer. Like fellow safety Micah Hyde, Poyer signed a free agent contract with Buffalo last offseason. After he posted just 10 starts, 2 interceptions and 6 pass deflections in 4s in Cleveland, Poyer's first year in Buffalo included career highs of 15 starts, 5 interceptions and 13 pass deflections. Poyer, Hyde and Tre'Davious White, a first-round rookie cornerback, gave the Bills' secondary a facelift in 2017. Poyer's contribution to that trio should not be overlooked. Charles Rex Arbogast, Associated Press. Despite playing just 63 offensive snaps in his rookie, sophomore offensive lineman Taylor Moton is in position to be a major factor for the Carolina Panthers moving forward. Andrew Norwell, a guard who played every offensive snap for Carolina last year, signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars this offseason, opening up a competition for a starting guard slot. Moton and Amini Silatolu, who played 23% of the Panthers' offensive snaps last year, should be the 2 top candidates for the opening. Long-term, Moton could push Matt Khalil out of the left tackle slot. Khalil struggled in his first year with Carolina after signing a $55.5 million deal. According to Spotrac, Khalil's dead cap will be higher than his cap hit until 2020, meaning the Panthers have their hands tied until then. In 2 years, maybe after seeing some playing time at guard, Moton could kick out to tackle to replace Khalil. We've seen the college tackle to starting guard to starting tackle plan in action before in the NFL. Look for Moton to follow a La'el Collins-like path to offensive tackle. Paul Sancia, Associated Press. Among starting veteran offensive linemen, the only left tackle with a lower cap hit than Chicago's Charles Leno this year will be Alejandro Villanueva. Leno has only made $10.7 million to this point in his career. 16 different offensive linemen have higher cap hits than $10.7 million alone this year. Leno has consistently improved as a pass protector since he was drafted in the 7th round in 2014 and is now one of the team's top 10 players. If he hit the open market, Leno might be a $60 million player with the way the offensive line market is exploding. Over the next 4 years, the Bears should save about $20 million on the market price for their starting caliber left tackle. Nick Waz, Associated Press. Tyler Eifert is typically thought of as Cincinnati's top tight end. The once promising pass catcher has sustained so many injuries over the years, though, that he is playing on a 1-year, $5.5 million contract at just 27 years old. Eifert's insurance policy is Tyler Kroft, a 25-year-old 2015 third-round pick from Rutgers who posted 404 yards and 7 receiving touchdowns last. As far as insurance policies go, there aren't many who had the numbers Kroft did in 2017. Just 5 other tight ends league-wide recorded 7 receiving touchdowns, and only Jimmy Graham 10 TDs surpassed that total by more than 2. While Eifert has a higher upside, the combination of Eifert's potential and the safety net of Kroft allowed the Bengals to double down on Eifert's future on a short-term deal. Ron Schwan, Associated Press. After the trade of Danny Shelton to the New England Patriots, the Cleveland Browns' top interior defender is Larry Ogunjobi, even if he isn't proven as a time starter. Now a second-year under tackle, Ogunjobi earns his keep by making plays in the backfield. Last year, despite playing just 28% of Cleveland's defensive snaps, Ogunjobi finished the year with 16 tackles at or behind the line. That number ranks behind only Emmanuel Ogbah 18 tackles among Cleveland line of scrimmage defenders. Ogunjobi should play an increased role in 2018, as the loss of Shelton, who played 44% of defensive snaps, will give the high-efficiency, low-snap player more playing time. Roger Steinman, Associated Press. A 2013 undrafted free agent out of Division II's Saginaw Valley State, Jeff Heath went from an obscure special teamer to a time starter last. Heath played 880 defensive snaps last year, the second most on the Dallas Cowboys, while also playing a majority of special teams snaps. Heath ranked 28th out of 45 qualifying free safeties in Bleacher Report's NFL 1000 series this. He isn't Earl Thomas, but his baseline emergence does benefit the team. For example, it's unlikely former first-round pick Byron Jones would move to cornerback, as the team has said is the plan this offseason, if Heath didn't take the next step last. His contract is also noteworthy. Heath is in the 3rd year of a 4-year contract in which his cap hit will never be more than $2.45 million. For the number of snaps HES playing, HES one of the best veteran values in the NFL, Reid Hoffman, Associated Press. You're going to hear a lot about Denver's pass rushing unit this. The Broncos already had the all-world talent of Von Miller but doubled down on the position by selecting North Carolina State's Bradley Chubb with the 5th overall pick in the draft. Behind that duo a 2015 first-round pick Shane Ray and soon-to-be unrestricted free agent Shaquille Barrett. The Broncos tended Barrett this offseason after the former undrafted free agent finished out a 9-start that pushed his career sack mark to 11. In total, Barrett has made 40 tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage over the last 3 years, the most of any line of scrimmage defender in Denver other than Miller. At the moment, Barrett is one of the best 3rd or 4th pass rushing options in the sport. By this time next year, he could be your team's starting outside linebacker. Andy Clayton King, Associated Press. Gary Hyder missed the 2017 regular after sustaining an ending injury in the preseason, but his 2016 regular season effort should not be forgotten. He led the Detroit Lions in sacks with 8 and in tackles at or behind the line with 12. In a down year for Ezekiel Ansah, Hyder was the Lions' top defensive lineman. In his absence in 2017, Anthony Zettel recorded 6.5 sacks and 11.5 tackles at a behind-the-line opposite Ansah. Haider and Zettel should compete for playing time in 2017. Who knows what Haider would have looked like next to an in-rhythm Ansah, though if Haider wins the starting role next to a healthy Ansah, a of double-digit sacks is not out of the question. Stacey Revere, Getty Images. Last Green Bay defensive lineman Dean Lowry played 47% of the Packers' defensive snaps. Jake Ryan, one of the 3 to 4 teams' inside linebackers, played just 48% of snaps in 2017. Dom Capers' penetrating 3 to 4 scheme is much different than new defensive coordinator Mike Pettine's more traditional defense, which means there will likely be more looks with 3 interior linemen in Green Bay in 2018 than in the recent past. If Muhammad Wilkerson, whose effort has been very hot and cold over the last 2 years, does not pan out, those extra reps will go to Lowry, who already is making an impact for the Packers. In 2 since being drafted as a 4th-rounder, Lowry has made 13.5 tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage, 5th among Green Bay's line of scrimmage defenders. 2016 first-round pick Kenny Clark is 4th with 16.5. Ron Schwan, Associated Press. Antrell Henderson wasn't great as a starter in Buffalo, but he was a bookend who got them out of some games without a disaster situation. The 2017 Houston Texans were an absolute disaster situation on the offensive line. While the addition of guard Zach Fulton gives them a time starter on the interior, the Texans still have the weakest offensive tackle tandem in the league. After the trade of Dwayne Brown, the Texans are left with second-year 4th-round pick Julian Davenport, rookie 3rd-round pick Martinez Rankin and Henderson as the notable offensive tackles on the roster. Henderson would likely be a swing tackle for most NFL teams, but in Houston, he might be a 16-game starter. If quarterback Deshaun Watson can simply survive and advance with Henderson at right tackle, Houston fans should be happy. The Texans basically sat out the 2017 free agency period and the 2018 NFL draft, so there's not much more they could have asked for outside of keeping Brown. Seth Wenig, Associated Press. The Indianapolis Colts pass rushing unit will be more competitive this than in 2017. Over the last 2 years, Kemoko Turay, Tyquan Lewis and Tarell Basham have been drafted in the top 100 by Indianapolis. In the 2017 free agency period, the team added Jabal Sheard and John Simon, who played significant snaps last year. The overlooked player in the pass-rushing room, though, is former Los Angeles Charger Chris McCain. The poster boy for the NFL's sub-240-pound pass rushers, McCain recorded 9 tackles at or behind the line while playing behind the likes of Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. That 9-tackle number is neck and neck with Simon's 11 tackles as a 9-game starter, all while McCain only played 23% of the Chargers' defensive snaps last. Why Los Angeles gave up McCain, who was technically a restricted free agent, is a big question mark. Don Wright, Associated Press. Every major defender in Jacksonville is a borderline superstar at this point, so we have to turn our attention to the offensive side of the ball for a Jaguars hidden gem. There, Tommy Bohannon played 273 offensive snaps last, the 3rd most for an NFL back. More than half of the NFL's 2 counts are scored from inside 10-yard lines. With the assist of Bohannon, running back Leonard Fournette carried the ball 26 times for 10 2-counts last inside the 10. Bohannon also ran for 2 2-counts on 3 carries inside the 10 and caught a 2-count in the divisional round. Fullbacks may not make or break most teams, but Bohannon was absolutely a contributor on a Jacksonville team that wants to be closer to a throwback squad than a new age offense. Ed Zerger, Associated Press. The forgotten skill player in Kansas City is wide receiver Chris Conley. With Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins on the roster, Conley will be the 3rd receiver for the Chiefs, buried behind the personalities of new starting quarterback Patrick Mahomes, tight end Travis Kelce and running back Kareem Hunt. Still, Conley has 21 starts under his belt, including 16 in the last 21 games he's been healthy for. In a contract year on a loaded roster, expect him to produce enough for Kansas City to cash in a compensatory pick for the outgoing pass catcher. In 2016, Conley's last healthy, he posted 530 receiving yards and 44 receptions, making him one of only 9 sophomore receivers to hit those marks. Mark J. Terrell, Associated Press. Injuries to cornerback Jason Verrett stalled a once promising career. In recent years, the Los Angeles Chargers have had to lean on other cornerbacks, notably Casey Hayward and Trevor Williams, to get the job done. Hayward, a Pro Bowler, has been acknowledged for the strides he has made with the Chargers, but Williams has been overlooked. Joining the Chargers as an undrafted free agent in 2016, Williams has started 20 games. The expectations for him should have been little to nothing. Despite that, he has outplayed 2015 third-round pick Craig Mager and gives Los Angeles a safety net behind Verrett in case another major injury comes his way. Al Pereira, Getty Images. The Los Angeles Rams have had a lot of turnover at the pass rusher position. Connor Barwin and Chris Long walked, while Robert Quinn and William Hayes were traded. At the moment, only hybrid linebacker Ethan Westbrooks and Matt Longacre make up the veteran outside linebacker unit. Longacre recorded 5.5 sacks last despite starting just one game, but the Rams may have to rely on him to be a time starter this year with just Westbrooks, Samson Ebukam, Ajuan Price, Ogbonnia Okoronkwo and Trevin Young to push him for playing time. Ebukam is a second-year fourth-round pick out of Eastern Washington, while Price, Okoronkwo and Young have all been drafted in the fifth round or later over the last two draft classes. The Rams and the New York Jets are the thinnest teams at pass rushing positions. Sure, Los Angeles' defensive line will be stacked but they will still be starting two outside linebackers. In reality, Longacre will likely play more snaps than Michael Brockers this year. Jeff Haynes, Associated Press. Since 2012, only 8 defenders have recorded at least 27 sacks and at least 68 other tackles that are behind the line. Those players are J.J. Watt, Ndamukong Suh, Michael Bennett, Calais Campbell, Muhammad Wilkerson, Kyle Williams, Aaron Donald and William Hayes. Yes, Hayes belongs to an elite group of defensive linemen. That's surprising because we don't do a good job of presenting influential plays that defensive linemen make outside of sacks. Hayes' run game penetration value is elite. However, he played over 50% of Miami's defensive snaps in just one game at Baltimore despite making crucial plays, all that helped lead to wins, like against the Atlanta Falcons. The addition of Robert Quinn to an already crowded defensive end room could push Hayes further down the depth chart, but at worst, he will be a high-efficiency, low-rep player in 2018. Jim Moan, Associated Press. There are stars on every level of the Minnesota Vikings defense. Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter, Linval Joseph and Sheldon Richardson should make up one of the most dominant defensive lines in the league. Behind them will be off-ball linebackers Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, one of the league's best tandems. In the secondary, Harrison Smith was arguably the league's top safety last, while cornerback Xavier Rhodes continues to shine. The most underrated piece on the Vikings' defense is safety Andrew Sendejo. Once thought of as a liability, Sendejo has made 11 pass deflections and 4 interceptions over the last 2 years after recording just 6 pass deflections and 2 interceptions in his first SIXS in the NFL. With a cap hit of just $3.5 million, Sendejo ranks 30th in veteran safety cap hits. He ranks one slot ahead of Seattle's Bradley McDougald, who may not start a game this if Cam Chancellor stays healthy. As a bang for your buck value, Sendejo isn't talked about enough. Eric Risberg, Associated Press. The New England Patriots traded for former first-round pick Cordarrelle Patterson this offseason. The former Minnesota Viking and Oakland Raider is better suited as a return specialist than the hybrid receiver-back role he was projected to play when he came out of the University of Tennessee. An afterthought as an offensive skill player, Patterson still has high potential as a kick returner. In the 2000s, only 3 players, Josh Cribbs, Leon Washington and Dante Hall, have recorded more kick return touchdowns than Patterson has in his 5 years in the league. If Patterson continues to average 1 kick return touchdown per year, he will stand alone as the NFL's all-time kick return touchdown leader by 2021, as a 30-year-old. A few facts show how dominant Patterson has been as a kick returner. He has 5 kick return touchdowns under his belt since 2013, while no one else has more than 2. His 4,721 kick return yards since 2013 is 1,759 yards more than the next highest active player, Dwayne Harris. His 31.3 yards per kick return is the highest of any player with 20 or more returns since 2013. If there is a way to exploit new kickoff rules, the Patriots, with the help of Patterson, will likely be on the right side of the exploiting. Sean Gardner, Getty Images. After the trade-up for UTSA defensive end Marcus Davenport in 2018 draft, the New Orleans Saints will start 3 first-rounders on their defensive line this year. The open slot on their depth chart, nose tackle, includes a high-end sleeper, David Onyemata. Onyemata was drafted in the 4th round in 2016 out of Canada's University of Manitoba. Despite playing just 57% of New Orleans' defensive snaps last year, virtually equal to Tyler Davison 56% and well behind Sheldon Rankins 77%, Onyemata led the Saints' defensive interior with 12 tackles at or behind the line in 2017. If Onyemata can earn a time starting role on New Orleans' new and improved line, with players like Davison and Alex Okafor coming off the bench, the unit could be one of the best in the league. Currently, HES a low-rep, high-efficiency player. If he can prove to replicate the same production as a high-rep player, he won't be an unknown going into 2019. Julio Cortez, Associated Press. The New York Giants traded Jason Pierre-Paul, arguably their best pass rusher, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this offseason. That opened up a competition for the starting pass rushing role opposite Olivier Vernon. New defensive coordinator James Bettcher, who was the outside linebackers coach and defensive coordinator in Arizona since 2013, may lean toward giving the job to Kareem Martin, who was signed by the Giants this offseason and played with the Cardinals from 2014 to 2017. With that being said, Martin has recorded only 3.5 sacks over his 4 years in the NFL, so look for 2017 fifth-round pick Avery Moss to join the starting lineup. Moss played 248 snaps for the Giants from Week 5 on last year, more than any pass rusher on the team not named Pierre-Paul Vernon. You may not know his name, but there will be a starting opportunity for Moss in 2018. Kathy Willens, Associated Press. The New York Jets have had to replace defensive linemen after moving on from Damon Harrison, Sheldon Richardson and Muhammad Wilkerson over the last 3 off-seasons. That could not have happened without the contribution of Steve McClendon, a hit free agent signing from Pittsburgh. In 2017, McClendon recorded 16.5 tackles at or behind the line, the most for any line of scrimmage defender on the Jets roster. Though he was playing on a veteran contract, McClendon's cap hit was less than $4 million, an absolute steal relative to market value. For reference, McClendon's 2018 cap hit $4.3 million ranks 377th in the league, tied with the likes of Cowboys slot receiver Cole Beasley. McClendon, and his ability to play above his contract value, has been a steal for New York. Look for him to cash in next offseason on what could be his final contract. Michael Ainsworth, Associated Press. During the draft, Ryan Switzer was traded from the Cowboys to the Oakland Raiders for 2016 second-round defensive lineman Jihad Ward. Switzer, a 2017 fourth-rounder, caught just 6 balls for 41 receptions as a rookie. Switzer's impact on the passing game is not why the Raiders traded for him, though. He recorded 600 yards as a kick returner and 256 yards as a punt returner, including 1 punt return touchdown. After it traded Cordarrelle Patterson to New England, Oakland had an opening for a return specialist. New Raiders assistant head coach and special teams coordinator Rich Bisaccia left Dallas for Oakland this offseason, which may have played into Switzer's following Bisaccia's path. Look for Switzer and Dwayne Harris, another standout return man, to push each other for playing time. Gregory Payan, Associated Press. You know what's really hard to find a secret on a team that just won the Super Bowl. The player who may sneakily be more significant than people realize, though, is quarterback Nick Foles. The general consensus is Carson Wentz will return from injury and instantly assume the Eagles' starting quarterback spot again, but many ACL injuries have taken longer than expected to heal. A backup plan like Foles, the Super Bowl MVP, is a great insurance policy. Philadelphia clearly thinks so, too, as Howie Roseman has been using creative methods to manipulate the salary cap but was still willing to rope off $13.6 million for Foles. Don Wright, Associated Press. The Pittsburgh Steelers played more true 3 to 4 defensive looks last year than I can remember a modern NFL defense playing in years. With standout 5 technique defensive ends like Cameron Hayward and Stephon Tuitt, it made sense. Many assumed 2016 third-round pick Javon Hargrave would become the third man in the defensive line room. That was the case, up until the free agency addition of 2010 first-round pick Tyson Alualu. Last year, Hargrave played 455 snaps to Alualu's 434, making them close to equals. While Hargrave is mentioned with some of the league's top defensive linemen, Alualu was overlooked as he became a contributor to a defense that helped the team finish 13-3. Rick Scuteri, Associated Press. The talk about Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco is warranted, but George Kittle's contribution to the team's late-season winning streak should be noted, too. Despite starting just 7 games, Kittle became one of 4 rookie tight ends since 2011 to post 515 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. While that doesn't seem extraordinary on paper, on the scale of rookie tight ends, Kittle has an elite start on the competition. Only one player in recent history, 2008 first-round pick Dustin Keller, posted more production at tight end with fewer starts than Kittle. After putting up just 2 40-yard games in the first 14 weeks of Kittle found a groove with Garoppolo and registered 194 yards in the last 3 weeks. If Kittle can come close to recording 70 yards per game as a sophomore, he's going to become one of the biggest day 3 steals in years. Michael Ainsworth, Associated Press. Nothing is stable in Seattle at the moment, but one player who will help the Seahawks in this transitional phase is nose tackle Jarran Reed. After jumping from 6 starts as a rookie in 2016 to 15 in 2017, Reed will join Frank Clark, a third pass rusher until last, as the anchors to the Seahawks defensive line. The departures of Cliff Avril, Michael Bennett and Sheldon Richardson left holes up front. Add in the loss of cornerback Richard Sherman and the questions about strong safety Kam Chancellor's future, and only more of the load will fall on Reed's shoulders. Among returning Seattle defensive linemen, only Clark, 34 tackles, has recorded more tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage than Reed's 17.5 over the last 2 years. Reed has already established himself as one of the top players on the defensive depth chart, no matter if he can replace the likes of Avril or Bennett. Rich Barnes, Associated Press. Unless you own him in your dynasty league, you've probably forgotten about Chris Godwin already. The 2017 third-round pick out of Penn State ranked 6th in receptions during his rookie with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, registering 34 catches for 525 yards and 1 touchdown. His 15.4 yards per reception were also more than any of the Bucs, who caught more passes than him. That is to say, with the ball in his hands, Godwin looked like an NFL starter. Slot receiver Adam Humphries commands the third wide receiver role on a team that has invested heavily in 2 tight ends, but in year 2, Godwin might elbow Humphries out of the rotation and assume some of the 83 targets and 61 receptions Humphries posted last year. Long-term, Godwin could move up from a 4th receiver to a 2nd receiver, as the 31-year-old Deshaun Jackson's skill set, which is based on speed, should not age well. So while you may have forgotten about Godwin after your team passed on him in the draft, he is valuable to the Buccaneers moving forward. Rick Scuteri, Associated Press. Since Quinton Spain signed as an undrafted free agent out of West Virginia in 2015, he has started 33 games at left guard for the Tennessee Titans. According to Pro Football Reference's approximate value metric, Spain has been more valuable over the last 3s than all but 3 Titans draft picks: quarterback Marcus Mariota, offensive tackle Jack Conklin and safety Kevin Byard. On a loaded offensive line and overshadowed by the likes of Conklin, Taylor Lewan and Ben Jones, Spain is rarely noticed. Among young players on the Titans roster, though, Spain ranks highly. The team got a steal when it snagged a starting caliber offensive lineman 3 years ago. Patrick Smith, Getty Images. Matt Ioannidis went from a 5th-round pick to a 10-game starter in 2 years. In the NFL, that is not normal, especially at a position with as much league-wide depth as defensive line. Ioannidis, the 152nd pick in the 2016 draft, recorded 4.5 sacks for Washington last. To put that into perspective, only one other player, Anthony Zettel, was drafted later in 2016 and recorded more sacks. Zettel is also a 4-3 defensive end, while Ioannidis worked in the interior. Only one other interior defender selected later than Ioannidis recorded a sack last, and Houston's DJ Reader only posted 1. The losses of Chris Baker last year and Terrell McClain this offseason have put some stress on the team's younger defensive linemen, but the Temple product has played well for Washington.